My grandson told me he was going to be a doctor. He showed me the acceptance letter. He cried when he said he could not afford the tuition. I believed him. I paid for everything. 4 years of medical school, textbooks, an apartment near campus, a car to get to his hospital rotations. I gave him over $200,000. Until one night, I drove to surprise him at his graduation ceremony, and I found him at a casino, drunk, throwing dice at a craps table, laughing with strangers. He was never enrolled. He never attended a single class. And when he saw me standing there watching him lose my money, his smile disappeared like smoke. If you are listening to my story, subscribe to Shattered Vengeance right now. We tell stories here that will make you question everything you thought you knew about your own family. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Walter Macpherson. I am 68 years old, and I am not here to complain. I am here to tell you what I saw, what I discovered, and what made me understand that sometimes the people you love the most know exactly how to destroy you. On June 14th, around 9 in the evening, I drove 3 hours from my home in Calgary to Edmonton. I wanted to surprise my grandson at his medical school graduation. I had bought a new suit for the occasion. I had a card in my pocket with a check for $20,000 inside, a gift to help him start his residency. I had tears in my eyes the whole drive, thinking about how proud his grandmother would have been if she were still alive. I parked downtown, walked toward the university, and then I realized I did not know exactly where the ceremony was being held, so I called him. No answer. I called again. Nothing. I sent a text. No reply. I thought maybe his phone was on silent. Maybe he was already at the ceremony. Maybe he was nervous. So I decided to walk around, to find someone who could point me to the medical school convocation hall. That is when I passed the River Cree Casino, and through the massive glass windows, in the bright lights of the gaming floor, I saw a young man in a designer jacket throwing dice at a craps table. He was surrounded by people cheering. He had a drink in one hand and chips stacked in front of him. And when he turned to high-five someone beside him, I saw his face. It was my grandson, the one who was supposed to be receiving his medical degree at that very moment. The one I had been supporting for 4 years. The one who called me every month to thank me for believing in him. He was not at a graduation. He was gambling. And from the way the staff treated him, from the way he moved around that table like he owned it, I knew this was not his first time. I stood there frozen. My heart stopped beating. The card with the check suddenly felt like a brick in my pocket. And I understood, in that single moment, that everything I had believed for the past 4 years was a lie. To understand why this hurt so deeply, you need to know where I come from. I was born in a small town in Saskatchewan, the kind of place where the nearest hospital was 2 hours away, and the winters could kill you if you were not careful. My father was a grain farmer. He worked 16-hour days during harvest season and barely survived the rest of the year. My mother raised 5 children in a house with no running water until I was 12. I learned early that nothing in this life comes free. If you want to eat, you work. If you want warmth, you chop wood. If you want a future, you build it with your own 2 hands. I left home at 17 with $40 and a bag of clothes. I hitchhiked to Calgary because someone told me there was work in the oil fields. I got a job as a roughneck, the lowest position on a drilling rig. The work was brutal, 12-hour shifts and freezing temperatures, covered in mud and oil, watching men get injured every week. But I saved every dollar. I learned everything I could. By 25, I was a drilling supervisor. By 35, I owned my first rig. By 50, I had a fleet of 12 rigs and contracts worth over $40 million a year. I built McPherson Energy from nothing. Every success I had, I earned through sweat and sacrifice. I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. I worked while other men rested. And when I finally had money, real money, I swore I would use it to give my family the opportunities I never had. I married Dorothy when I was 23. She was a nurse from Medicine Hat, the kindest woman I ever knew. She gave me 2 children, a son named Robert and a daughter named Catherine. She stood by me through the lean years and the prosperous ones. And when she got sick, when the cancer came and took her piece by piece, I was there, holding her hand until the very end. She died 3 years ago this October. I buried her in a cemetery overlooking the mountains she loved, and I thought I would never feel pain like that again. I was wrong. What my grandson did hurt worse. Because Dorothy's death was natural. It was God's will. But what my grandson did was a choice. A deliberate, calculated choice to deceive me, to steal from me, to watch me suffer while he laughed. My grandson's name is Tyler. He is the son of my daughter, Catherine. When he was born, I held him in my arms and I saw something special. He was bright, curious, always asking questions. By the time he was 10, he was talking about wanting to be a doctor, wanting to help people, wanting to make a difference. His grandmother adored him. She would take him to the hospital where she used to work and show him around. She would tell him stories about saving lives, about the nobility of medicine, and he would listen with those big eyes, nodding, saying he wanted to be just like her. Catherine raised him well, or so I thought. She was a single mother after her husband left when Tyler was 5. I helped her financially, paid for Tyler's private school, made sure he had every opportunity. And when he graduated high school with honors, when he told me he had been accepted to the medical program at McMaster University in Hamilton, I cried. I actually cried, because I thought all those years of sacrifice had paid off. I thought my family was going to produce a doctor, someone who would heal people, someone who would make Dorothy proud. Tyler came to me 2 weeks after his acceptance. He sat in my living room with his mother, and he looked at me with those sincere eyes, and he said the words that would start this whole nightmare. "Grandpa, I got in. I really got in. But the tuition, the living expenses, it is so expensive. Mom cannot afford it, and I do not want to take out loans that will crush me for decades. I know it is a lot to ask, but could you help me? Just until I finish school. I will pay you back every cent when I am a doctor." Catherine looked uncomfortable. She said, "Dad, you do not have to. We can figure something out." But I waved her off. I looked at my grandson, at the hope in his eyes, at the dream he was chasing, and I said yes without hesitation. "Of course I will help you. Education is the most important investment there is. Your grandmother would have wanted this more than anything." Tyler hugged me. He cried on my shoulder. He said, "Thank you, Grandpa. I will make you proud. I promise." And I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. The first year, I transferred $8,000 every month. Tuition, rent for an apartment near McMaster, food, textbooks, transportation. Tyler called me regularly. He told me about his classes, his professors, how hard the workload was. He sent me pictures of himself in a white coat during his anatomy lab. He complained about the stress, the sleepless nights, studying. And I listened to every word, proud, so incredibly proud. Dorothy's sister, my sister-in-law Margaret, lived in Toronto, about an hour from Hamilton. I asked her to check on Tyler occasionally, to make sure he was eating properly, to bring him home-cooked meals. She visited him twice that first year. Both times, he seemed tired, stressed, exactly what you would expect from a medical student. She told me he was doing fine, working hard, so I had no reason to doubt. The second year, the costs increased. Tyler said he needed a better laptop for his research. He said there were additional fees for clinical equipment. He said his car broke down and he needed a new one to get to his hospital placements. I sent more money, $12,000 a month now. I did not question it. Medical school is expensive. Everyone knows that. But something changed in the third year. Tyler's calls became less frequent. When I did reach him, he sounded distracted, rushed. He always had an excuse to cut the conversation short. "I am heading into a lecture, Grandpa. I have an exam tomorrow. I am on call at the hospital tonight." Catherine noticed it too. She mentioned that Tyler had missed Christmas dinner, said he had to stay in Hamilton for a rotation. She seemed hurt but understanding. "He is so busy, Dad. That is just how medical school is." I accepted the explanations. I made excuses for him, because when you love someone, when you believe in someone, you do not look for lies. You look for reasons to keep believing. And I kept believing. even when the signs were right in front of me. Margaret was the first to truly suspect something was wrong. She had moved to a retirement community in Burlington, closer to Hamilton, and she decided to surprise Tyler with dinner one evening. She drove to the apartment address I had given her, the one I was paying $3,000 a month for. When she arrived, she found a different name on the mailbox. She knocked on the door. A young woman answered, said she had been living there for over a year, had never heard of anyone named Tyler Macpherson. Margaret called me that night, confused. "Walter, something is strange. I went to Tyler's apartment. He does not live there." I tried to calm her down. Maybe he moved. Maybe he forgot to tell us. Students move all the time. But Margaret was not convinced. She had that tone in her voice, the same tone Dorothy used to get when something was not right. "I am telling you, Walter, something is off. I can feel it." I called Tyler the next morning. I asked him about his apartment. He laughed nervously and said, "Oh, I moved a few months ago, closer to the hospital. I forgot to mention it. Sorry, Grandpa." I asked for his new address. He hesitated, then gave me one. I wrote it down, but did not think much more about it. People forget things. He was busy. I was making a mountain out of a molehill. But Margaret would not let it go. She drove to the new address. This time, it was a high-rise condominium, expensive, with a concierge desk in the lobby. She asked the concierge if Tyler Macpherson lived there. The concierge checked his records and said yes, Unit 1412. Margaret felt relieved, but something still nagged at her. She asked, "How long has he lived here?" The concierge checked again. "Since the building opened, about 18 months. 18 months. In a luxury condominium, while I was paying for a medical school apartment that apparently did not exist." Margaret called me again. "Walter, listen to me. That building costs at least $4,000 a month. There is a gym, a pool, a rooftop lounge. That is not student housing. That is a penthouse." I felt a chill run through me, but I pushed it away. Maybe he got a good deal. Maybe he has roommates. Maybe he is using some of the money I sent for better housing because he needs a quiet place to study. I was making excuses. I know that now. I was so desperate to believe in my grandson that I twisted every piece of evidence into something innocent. And Margaret, bless her heart, she saw right through it. But she also knew I would not listen. So she did something I will be grateful for until the day I die. She started watching. She started taking notes. She started building a case. Over the next 6 months, Margaret kept track of everything. She would drive past Tyler's building at random times. She saw him coming and going at all hours, often with groups of young people who looked nothing like medical students. She saw expensive cars in his parking spot, a BMW one month, a Mercedes the next. She saw him leaving the building in designer clothes, carrying shopping bags from Holt Renfrew and Harry Rosen. She took pictures. She wrote down dates and times. And she never said a word to me because she knew I needed proof. She knew I would defend Tyler until I could not defend him anymore. Catherine started noticing things too. Tyler had stopped calling her almost entirely. When she did reach him, he was evasive, irritable. She mentioned it to me once over coffee. "Dad, Tyler seems different. Distant. I do not know. Maybe medical school has changed him," I reassured her. "It is stressful. He is under a lot of pressure. He will be himself again once he graduates." But inside, a small voice was starting to whisper. The voice I had been ignoring for months. The voice that sounded like Dorothy. I remember lying awake one night, staring at the ceiling, and I heard her. I heard Dorothy's voice as clearly as if she were lying beside me. "Something is wrong, Walter. Our boy is not who you think he is." I shook it off. I told myself I was imagining things, that grief was playing tricks on me. But Dorothy was never wrong about people. She could see through anyone. And if she were alive, she would have seen through Tyler from the beginning. The 4th year arrived. Tyler told me he was entering his clinical rotations, the final step before graduation. He said the schedule was brutal, that he would be working 80-hour weeks at various hospitals. He said he might not be able to call as often. I understood. I sent the money. I waited for updates. Then came the graduation announcement. Tyler called me in April, his voice excited for the first time in months. "Grandpa, I did it. I am graduating in June. The ceremony is on the 14th. Will you come?" I felt my heart swell. Of course I will come. I would not miss it for anything. I could hear him smile through the phone. "It means so much to me, Grandpa. After everything you have done, I cannot wait for you to see me walk across that stage." I bought a new suit. I got a haircut. I wrote a check for $20,000, a graduation gift to help him start his residency. I made hotel reservations in Hamilton. I planned to take him out for the finest dinner in the city. I imagined the moment I would see him in his cap and gown, receiving his medical degree, becoming the doctor his grandmother always dreamed he would be. I imagined Dorothy watching from somewhere above, smiling, proud. And then I drove to Edmonton. Wait, Hamilton. No, Tyler had told me the ceremony was moved. Something about venue issues at McMaster. The graduation was being held in Edmonton this year, at the Shaw Conference Center. It seemed strange, but I did not question it. I just drove. 3 hours on the highway, alone with my thoughts, with my pride, with my excitement. When I arrived in Edmonton, I went straight to the conference center. But it was dark, empty. No signs of any graduation ceremony. I checked my phone, checked the date, June 14th, tonight. I walked around the building, looking for an entrance, for people in academic robes, for anything that looked like a convocation. Nothing. That is when I called Tyler. No answer. Called again. Nothing. I started to panic. I thought maybe I had the wrong venue. Maybe there was a miscommunication. I decided to walk around downtown, to ask someone, to find out what was happening. And that is when I passed the casino. That is when I saw him through the window. That is when everything I had believed for 4 years collapsed in an instant. I stood outside the River Cree Casino for 10 minutes, watching through the glass. I watched my grandson throw dice, collect chips, order drinks, laugh with people I did not recognize. He was wearing a jacket that cost more than what I paid my first employees in a month. He moved with confidence, with familiarity, like someone who had spent many nights at that table. And I realized, with a sickness growing in my stomach, that this was where my money had gone. Not to textbooks, not to tuition, not to becoming a doctor, to this, to gambling, to luxury, to lies. I walked into the casino. The noise hit me first, the ringing of slot machines, the chatter of gamblers, the artificial cheerfulness of a place designed to take your money. I walked toward the craps table. I walked slowly, deliberately, each step feeling heavier than the last. And when I was close enough, when I was standing just a few meters away, Tyler turned. He saw me. And the smile on his face, the carefree joy of a man winning at dice, vanished instantly. His face went white. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The dice fell from his hand and rolled off the table. The people around him noticed something was wrong. They looked from Tyler to me, confused. Tyler took a step backward. "Grandpa," his voice cracked. "What are you doing here?" I said nothing. I just stared at him. I stared at the chips in front of him, thousands of dollars worth. I stared at the designer watch on his wrist, the one I had never seen before. I stared at the empty glass beside him, the remains of expensive whiskey. And then I spoke, my voice low, calm, more dangerous than any shout. "I came to see you graduate, but there is no graduation, is there, Tyler?" There never was. He tried to speak. He tried to explain. "Grandpa, I can't explain. This is not what it looks like. I just came out tonight to celebrate. The graduation is tomorrow. I got the dates mixed up when I told you. Please, let me explain." But I was not listening anymore. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the card with the check inside. I held it up so he could see it. "I was going to give you this tonight. $20,000. A gift for becoming a doctor." And then I tore it in half, right there in front of him. I tore it again and again until it was confetti in my hands. I let the pieces fall to the floor. Tyler's eyes went wide. "Grandpa, please, do not do this." I grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the table, away from the lights, away from the people watching. We went outside. into the cool June night. And there, in the parking lot of a casino where my grandson had been throwing away my money, I demanded the truth. It took 2 hours. 2 hours of lies, of partial admissions, of desperate attempts to minimize what he had done. But eventually, the truth came out. All of it. And it was worse than I could have imagined. Tyler had never been accepted to medical school. The acceptance letter he showed me was forged, created by a friend who worked at a print shop. He had never taken a single class at McMaster. He had never worn a white coat except for the photos he staged to send me. For 4 years, he had lived in luxury condominiums, gambled at casinos across the country, traveled to Las Vegas and Monaco, bought designer clothes, dated women who thought he was a wealthy young professional. And every dollar of it came from me. $217,000 over 4 years. That was the total. I had sent him over $200,000, and he had spent it all on gambling, on parties, on a lifestyle he had never earned. I asked him about the apartment Margaret had visited. He laughed bitterly. I sublet a cheap place for the first year just in case anyone checked. After that, I figured no one was paying attention. And you were not, Grandpa. You believed everything I told you. I asked him about the photos, the ones of him in a white coat. He shrugged. I bought a lab coat online, took pictures in a friend's basement. Anyone can look like a medical student if they try hard enough. I asked him why he had done this, why he had lied to me, stolen from me, watched me cry with pride while he laughed behind my back. His answer destroyed whatever was left of my heart, because it was easy. His voice was cold now, defensive. You wanted to believe, Grandpa. You wanted it so badly that you never questioned anything. All I had to do was tell you what you wanted to hear. I asked him if he felt any guilt, any remorse. He looked at me with eyes I did not recognize. I told myself it was not really stealing. You have millions. What is a couple $100,000 to you? It was not even real money. It was just numbers on a screen. I felt something die inside me. Not just love, not just trust, but something deeper. The belief that family meant something. The belief that blood was sacred. The belief that the people you love would never truly betray you. All of it died in that parking lot, under the neon lights of a casino sign. I drove back to Calgary that night. I did not sleep. I just sat in my living room, staring at the photograph of Dorothy on the mantel, and I talked to her. I told her what our grandson had done. I told her I was sorry for not seeing it sooner. I told her I wished she were there to tell me what to do. And then, as the sun came up, I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I called my accountant. I called a private investigator I had used years ago for a business matter. I told them everything, and I told them I wanted documentation. I wanted proof. I wanted every transaction traced, every lie documented, every piece of evidence assembled so thoroughly that there could be no denial, no excuses, no escape. The investigation took 3 weeks. What they found was even worse than what Tyler had confessed. He had gambling debts to multiple casinos. He owed money to private lenders, the kind who do not take payment plans. He had burned through not just my money, but had also taken out credit cards in my name without my knowledge, racking up another $60,000 in debt. He had forged my signature on documents. He had committed fraud. My lawyer laid out the options. I could press charges. Identity theft, fraud, forgery, the list went on. Tyler could face prison time, or I could handle it privately, cut him off, let him face the consequences of his choices without involving the law. I thought about it for a long time. I thought about what Dorothy would have wanted. I thought about Catherine, Tyler's mother, and how this would destroy her. And then I made my decision. I called a family meeting. Catherine, Margaret, and Tyler, all at my house on a Sunday afternoon. Tyler did not want to come. Catherine had to practically drag him. When they arrived, I saw the fear in his eyes. He knew what was coming. I laid the evidence on the dining room table. The forged acceptance letter, the bank statements, the photos Margaret had taken, the credit card bills in my name, the report from the private investigator, all of it, spread out like an autopsy of lies. Catherine started crying before I even finished explaining. She kept saying, "No, no, this cannot be true." But the evidence was undeniable. Tyler sat in silence, his head down, unable to look at any of us. When I finished, I looked at my grandson. I looked at the boy I had held in my arms, the child I had believed in, the young man I had sacrificed for, and I felt nothing. No love, no anger, just emptiness. "Here is what is going to happen," I said. My voice was steady, almost businesslike. "You are going to sign a confession admitting what you have done. You are going to agree to a repayment plan for every dollar you stole. You are going to close the fraudulent credit cards, and you are going to work to pay off the debt. And you are going to do all of this, because if you do not, I will press charges. You will go to prison, and you will lose everything." Tyler looked up. His eyes were red. "Grandpa, please, I am sorry. I made a mistake. Give me another chance." I shook my head. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. A mistake is bouncing a check. What you did was not a mistake. It was a choice. 1,000 choices over 4 years. Every lie was a choice. Every dollar you spent was a choice. And now you are going to live with the consequences. Catherine was sobbing. "Dad, please. He is my son. There has to be another way." I looked at my daughter, my heart breaking for her, but my resolve did not waver. "I am sorry, Catherine, but if I let him escape this, he will never change. He will do it again to someone else, maybe to you. The only way he learns is if there are real consequences." Tyler signed the confession that day. He agreed to a repayment plan of $2,000 a month for the next 10 years. He closed the fraudulent accounts, and I did not press charges. Though part of me wanted to, I did not do it for him. I did it for Catherine, for Dorothy's memory, for the family name that Tyler had already dragged through enough mud. The aftermath was harder than I expected. Tyler lost everything. The casinos came after him for his debts. He had to sell whatever he had bought with my money. He moved back to Calgary, got a job as a delivery driver, started living in a basement apartment that cost $600 a month. Catherine barely speaks to him. Margaret will not speak to him at all. I hear updates sometimes, whether I want to or not. He is working 2 jobs now. He is slowly paying down his debts. Someone told me they saw him at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. I do not know if that is true. I do not know if he has really changed or if he is just waiting for his next opportunity to deceive someone else. What I do know is that I will never trust him again. That door is closed forever, and it should be, because trust, once shattered, cannot be glued back together. You can forgive someone, you can move on with your life, but you can never unknow what they are capable of. People ask me if I regret helping him, if I wish I had never agreed to pay for his medical school dreams. And the truth is, I do not regret the generosity. I do not regret wanting to help my grandson succeed. What I regret is not verifying. What I regret is being so blinded by love that I ignored every warning sign. What I regret is not listening to Margaret when she first told me something was wrong. Dorothy used to say something that I think about every day now. She would say, "Trust is like a mirror. You can fix it if it breaks, but you will always see the cracks." And she was right. I see the cracks everywhere now. In every conversation, in every relationship, in every person who asks me for help. I am more careful, more cautious, more aware that the people who hurt you worst are often the ones you love most. 6 months after everything came out, I received a letter from Tyler. It was handwritten, 3 pages long. He apologized. He explained how he had started gambling in his first year of what was supposed to be medical school, how he had won big once and gotten hooked, how the lies had spiraled until he did not know how to stop. He said he understood if I never wanted to see him again. He said he was trying to become a better person. He said he hoped, someday, I could forgive him. I read the letter once, then I put it in a drawer, and I have not looked at it since. Maybe I will forgive him someday. Maybe I will not. But forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It does not mean opening myself up to be hurt again. It means letting go of the anger so it does not consume me. And I am working on that. Every day, I am working on that. What I have found in the years since is a kind of peace. Not the peace I had before, the innocent peace of believing the best in everyone. This is a harder peace, a wiser peace, the peace of a man who knows the world can be cruel, who knows that even family can betray you, but who refuses to let that make him bitter. I still run my company. I still support causes I believe in. I set up a scholarship fund in Dorothy's name for students who genuinely want to pursue medicine, students who are verified, vetted, and truly deserving. I find joy in knowing that her legacy lives on through young people who will actually become doctors, who will actually save lives. And sometimes, late at night, I talk to Dorothy. I tell her about my day. I tell her I miss her. I tell her I finally understand what she was trying to tell me all those years ago. That love without discernment is not love at all. It is just blindness. If you are listening to this story, I want you to remember something. Trust is precious. Give it carefully. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Do not make excuses. Do not look for reasons to keep believing. Just open your eyes and see. Because the con artist who destroys you will not be a stranger. It will be someone you love, someone you trust, someone who knows exactly what you want to hear and is willing to say it to take everything you have. My grandson wanted me to believe he was going to be a doctor. So I believed, and it cost me over $200,000 and the last bit of innocence I had left. But it also taught me the most important lesson of my life, a lesson I pass on to you now, here, at the end of this story. The ones who gamble with your trust deserve to lose everything. And now, if your own grandson had lied to you like this, if he had stolen your money, your trust, your belief in him, would you have had the strength to cut him off? Or would you have forgiven him just because he is blood? Leave me your answer in the comments. I want to know what you would do in my place. If this story made you think, if it made you question, if it made you look at your own family differently, leave a comment below. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Shattered Vengeance, because here we tell real stories that hurt but also teach, stories that remind you that your dignity is never negotiable. Thank you for listening to the end. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.